Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Kansas, this is night, freezing cold track, it's a mile and a half oval, and what that means is a white line race. The leader, as long as you can stick it on pole or barge your way up into P1 somehow, can just sit on the inside, much as we're doing here, drive for 70 laps quite happily, holding the bottom, no one can ever overtake you round the outside, and you win. In fact, the only way that you can possibly lose is if 20 laps of mind-numbing boredom driving on the inside at the front lead you to make a mistake of some sort. Much like that. Oh dear. Still. Pit stop, caution, sneaky strat, a little bit of research in advance, I don't need to take tyres. So I don't. Jump back out in front. And some 30 laps later, we're sitting on the inside quite happily once more, strolling to victory, keeping my mind on the task at hand, knowing that I've got slightly more worn tyres, so I do just need to drive very neatly and carefully, and nothing from now on can possibly go wrong. I said, and nothing from now on can... Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, let's have a bit of VAR to see what happened there. This is the exact frame at which iRacing thought we made contact with each other and I died into the wall. Fair to say that neither of us were particularly impressed by that. So if at first you don't succeed, try again. This time qualifying third, but two massive strokes of luck, jumping P2 at the start, and then the leader, Vitor, just decides, you know what? I don't want to drive a boring white line race. You have the lead. Thanks very much. 13 laps later, just minding our own business quite happily at the front. And a caution. That will do nicely. We stay out. A few people go in. No reason to pit yet, as if I go full throttle at the front, I can't make it all the way to the end yet. Whipping it forward. Lap 44. Absolutely nothing happened. Sitting here quite happily, and then I notice, I've still got 5 laps of fuel, which you can see down at bottom right. How come Hosu is pitting? Still, not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. I will carry on quite neatly. Unfortunately, what I haven't noticed is that second pack that's just crossed the start-finish line. So a few laps later, I suddenly realise what's happening and pit. See if I can screw that up. No, that's one thing going right at least, but when we come out the pits, here comes Hosu up behind us, half a second, 1 second, and through he goes, because what he's managed to do is pit at exactly the right time to attach himself to the back of that pack, go full throttle behind them, be much faster than if he was in clean air like I am now, and now he's going to get to drive away from me. Bugger. Still, lap 59. People are starting to pit because they're running out of fuel. All's well. We just, we can take a second place. I'll be happy with a second place after that ridiculous netcode. Here we go, 6th place already. Just starting to lap the people who have stayed out. 5th place now on lap 62. Unfortunately, some little penny in my little pea-sized brain is starting to drop, and on lap 66 it's now very, very obvious what the score is. There is Hosu up ahead of us, and there's Vitor and Michael in P1 and P2. They're not going to pit, and indeed they don't. They went all the way on 55 and 56 lap stints, all the way to the end, a deserved victory on fuel saving, and I just have to lump it. But not to worry, Kansas might not like us this week, but we've got another race on at Gateway. And right now, I'm feeling pretty good and optimistic about everything. I've dropped it on pole, vital here at Gateway, where track position is absolutely crucial. All we need to do now, get a good start, try to run away, and then see where we are. Keeping it nice and easy as the pace car pulls off, accelerating as soon as it turns in, and we're away. Now, key thing to do here, it takes 2 laps for the tyres to heat up properly. So whatever you do, do not get greedy on the exit of 2. Just keep it nice and controlled and do not smack the outside wall like it's so easy to do. Then coming around to 3 and 4, don't get greedy here either, otherwise you'll have a massive slide and use up a lot of tyre. Safely negotiated as well. Perfect start. Everything's going rather well. I'm feeling quite happy with myself. Whipping it forward, lap 25 now, and I'm in a bit of a quandary. I've still got the lead. I'm still leading Bevan by just a couple of tenths. We've pulled a nice gap on the rest of the field, and at this point I'm thinking, Bevan's fuel saving, that's going to put him in a better position than me. I'm going to have to pit first. I'm going to be at most danger of going a lap down if there's a caution. But the only thing I can do is drive as fast as I can, and he may well have the pace to beat me, but at least we can secure P2. Lap 43 now, and I've managed to extend the gap slightly thanks to the intervention of some lap traffic. I'm just starting to think about the pit stop phase and what I'm going to do in it. Coming up the back stretch, really critical to get a good 3 and 4 to stop Bevan closing on me. He's pulled 2 tenths in already while we've been watching. And now it doesn't matter, none of that hard work done pulling the gap matters. There's a caution, it's a pit stop race. You'll know what happened with me in pit stop races. Oops! Still, get it stopped. And I'm just waiting to see Bevan come piling past me. But no, we've got out in front still, even despite that terrible piece of braking. So how on earth have I managed that? Have a look down at bottom right at my fuel calculator. 57 litres in the tank is 70. Have a look up at the top left where my relative is. 8.5 second pit square bracket, 9.3 seconds top. I have quite deliberately decided that I think the fast thing to do is to short fuel, go fuel the tyres. I have to accept being a lap down for a longer period than I'd like, but I think that's an acceptable risk to take. Fastest way around, best chance of maybe not winning, depending on how fast Bevan is in clean air, but definitely of securing a strong second place. So the task now is much the same as it was at the start. Get a good restart, single file will help. Just deciding to go a bit later this time because Bevan knows that I like to go early. Job done, 0.5 seconds the gap as we go green. Here we go, 1 and 2, don't get too greedy, just go round it, but I've got to keep Bevan behind me, doink! And that, in short, is race over. Here comes Bevan past me. I now have unfixable side pod damage, and I'm going to be slower than a slow thing. So, for the record, the story of the rest of my race was that I drove around annoying people who were faster than me that couldn't pass me, because it's very, very hard to pass here. Got a half-decent finish in the end, but very, very, very annoyed and on tilt with myself that I couldn't make a better finish. But not to worry, there's even more Gateway coming up. Surely I can make something of that, right? So, let's just go over where my mindset is at that point. I'm slightly on tilt because of Kansas. I'm a bit more on tilt because of the first race at Gateway where I completely failed to convert a good grid position into anything. I'm then even more on tilt because in my first attempt at this race, I got a brilliant grid position, got myself up to second place on lap 1, and then on lap 2, for no readily apparent reason, my frame rate just dived under 20 frames a second. And the only thing I could do was park the car, watch the race, seethe, and get very, very, very frustrated. So I'm now extremely on tilt, and just to make things even better, I've screwed up my qualifying lap. I look at the board and I think, a perfect lap would have put me on pole, a good lap would have put me right in and amongst it, and instead, I'm firmly in the midfield. So my mental attitude at this point is, it's not as good as it could be. So my mindset, very much the mindset I tried to take into the Indy 500 races I did with some success. Just drive. Drive for half the laps, stay on the lead lap, don't do anything stupid, don't fight anyone too hard over anything, save a bit of fuel, and once you get to half distance, see what else is going on in the race, see where you are, and then think about how you might be able to move forward. But at all costs, stay calm, stay chill, don't do anything silly, relax, enjoy yourself, get to half distance, and see what the crack is. And as we finish lap 1, I think I've done a reasonable job of that. So, let's see how that went. Gonna cut a very long story short. It's lap 72. I have been happily vibing here behind Ty, who's a very good driver and knows what it's about. And then seeing the guy behind me dive up the inside, I go, I'm not having that. It's vitally important on lap 73 of 260 to have a massive fight over P11. I completely screw up my braking, I go far deeper than I intended. On exit I'm all out of sorts, I stamp too hard on the throttle with too much steering angle. Lilac's dead in the wall. I've got unfixable side pod damage again, and I'm consigned to another race of just riding around at the back and seeing what I could get. So, for the record, here is me crossing the finishing line and taking the checkered flag, a very miserable P12, a very miserable 3 laps down, barely not lapped for a 4th time, and looking up at the board and seeing 5 cars finish on the lead lap and just thinking, why? Why did I have to fight for P11 on lap 73? I could have had an easy 5th or 6th. Not a good feeling, I can tell you that. So, we're going to fade to black, then I'm going to real talk with you while we watch some more Kansas. So, what's the problem? Well, in many ways, the problem is that I have done too much winning. Now, I know that sounds like a silly and egotistical thing to say, but bear with me for a moment, hear my argument, then see what you think. It was a very interesting first few months on iRacing. I've discovered a car that I seem to be quite good at driving, and some tracks that I seem to be quite good at driving on, and I've had some really fun times in my first few months. Most notably, there was the week when I gained 1,000 iRating in a single week, and I made it all the way up to the heady heights of a peak iRating of I think about 3,300. Now if you have a look at the UI, you will see that my iRating is now quite a way below 3,300, for which there are many reasons. But the most important problem is this. To get my iRating up to 3,300, I basically grinded away at a few weeks where I was on tracks where I was very fast. I was able to reliably either stick the car on pole or at least top 3. I would then drive on mostly empty tracks in mostly clean air to victory or to podium positions, very rarely have to do any wheel-to-wheel battling, and generally have a nice easy time of it. Some of these tracks were white line tracks, like this Kansas track is now, and some of them were short ovals like Phoenix or Gateway, where I really enjoyed myself, and I really enjoyed the actual driving of them. So it sounds good, but here's the problem. Driving like that, eventually, you reach a point where you get into splits with some very good drivers who are just faster than you. They can qualify faster, and they can drive races faster than you can. What this means is that you can no longer rely on sticking the car high up on the grid, driving in clean air, and having a nice easy time of it. You've got to learn how to race. You've got to learn how to drive in traffic. You've got to learn a way of getting past drivers who are not being particularly cooperative about letting you through. And you're having to do it against some of the better drivers on the service. Remembering here that you are in something like the top 5% of drivers if your iRating is above 2,000, and the top 2% of drivers if your iRating is above 3,000. Again, I've not just only had 3 months on iRacing, I've had 3 months on Sims full stop. I don't have the skills to compete at that level. I certainly can't drive faster than they can, and compared to mine, their racecraft is off the scale. And really, that's what you've been seeing quite a lot of in the mistakes I've been making over the last few weeks. Hasn't been helped, of course, by having to take a long break, but even without that, I've known what I needed to do, and my first few weeks back on the service, I just haven't been doing it like I should. So here's what I'm going to be doing from now on until things get a whole lot better. I'm not going to get too worried about qualifying high. I will allow myself a couple of races a week where I really put everything into getting pole position and trying to win from the front. But I'm now as aware as I can be that in the long term, that is not a recipe for anything at all, other than frustration. What I'm going to do is what I did in the race that we're watching now. I am either going to put in a very slow lap to put myself ahead of anyone who hasn't bothered to qualify and behind anyone else, or I'm going to throw off a tossed off qualifying lap that will get me somewhere above P10 if I decide that I might want to run near the front of the pack. But I'm not going to allow myself to just run at the front and go for wins. I'm going to put myself behind people, and I am going to learn how to advance my position, and I'm going to learn properly how to fight wheel to wheel, and I am going to learn properly all those skills that I'm lacking. Because if I want to compete with the people who at least some of my pace tells me that I can one day compete with on a regular basis, I need to be a lot better at the kind of driving we're watching now. I need to be a lot better improving my position when it's time to improve my position. And I need to be a lot better under pressure, and races like this are constant pressure. You're in packs, you've got to be clean, you've got to pick your moment, you've got to be strategic, you've got to think a whole lot more. There it is, that's the tweet. Hopefully, a focus like this is going to give us some decent results. And judging by what I was able to do here in this race at Kansas, I think I might get there. It does mean I'm not going to finish sometimes. It does mean that pack bullshit is going to take me out sometimes, because that's just what happens when you race in a pack. But I'm definitely going to have to race in a pack at some point, and so I just need to get better at it. And what we've just seen is a reasonably successful example of me doing that. I hit the wall right at the start of the video, which set me back by several laps, and it didn't cause any damage, but still, as we skip ahead to the end of the race, one of the reasons why I didn't really manage to compete for third or fourth. I could have been up with them a lot sooner. I could have been up with them with much more of a chance to try and make something happen. And that's why I'm not really competing for fourth or third here, which I might have had a shot at. I just don't know how to finish positions like that. I don't know how to take advantage of opportunities. I don't know how to set myself up for opportunities. And the only way I'll learn is by giving it a go. A decent 5th place, a change of mindset, hopefully a better note to end the week on. Next week is Milwaukee. Milwaukee, really looking forward to it. Been enjoying the practice I've been doing for it so far. It is flat, it is short, it is extremely difficult, it is extremely grueling. I just hope it doesn't drive participation down too low. But I'm looking forward to a good time, I'm looking forward to a lot of learning, and strangely enough, for the first time, I'm looking forward to not winning so much. We'll see how it goes. See you next week.